Lieutenant Ryan Lennon is a mental health officer who recently returned from deployment aboard the USS Eisenhower in the Red Sea. He's an advocate for the vital role of embedded mental health care in the military. Through his experiences, he can speak firsthand about the importance of connection, community, and resilience in safeguarding the mental well-being of those who serve.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Ryan Lennon, for joining me here on AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really feel honored to even be asked to do this, and I feel appreciative to be talking to you. So thank you so much, truly.
Well, thank you for your service, might I say. You've put in and continue to put in. So, let's begin this way.
Okay.
As a mental health officer embedded with the USS Eisenhower, you've had a unique vantage point on the psychological challenges faced by service members. I wonder if we could begin this way. Can you share some of the most pressing mental health concerns that you've observed during your deployment and how you address them in such a high stress environment?
Sure. Yeah. It's it's one of those, like you said, a high stress environment, a very like pressure packed situation, kind of everything comes to a boiling point on deployment. So if you didn't take care of things prior to deployment, they're always going to resurface while you're out there, fighting the good fight, so to speak. So a lot of these kids are, they're 18, 19, 20, they're first term sailors. They've never been, deployed. They've never been basically anywhere, I guess, in their lifetime. So these are going to present unique challenges, not only to the crew that's been there, multiple times before, but, the new kids, especially, have never seen anything like this. And then you add kind of like a combat deployment on top of it, which, the Navy, we deploy quite a bit all over the world all the time. And then here and there we get our combat pieces. But this one was a strict combat deployment. So we had no port calls, no breaks, no time off. So it was particularly rough. So I think a lot of it comes down to what we call adjustment issues or adjustment disorder, which is, a diagnosis we throw around quite a bit in the military for various reasons. But because it is, there's a lot of adjustment that's going on at all times. So it's kind of apropos to the situation. So, I think the challenges are kind of, leaving on deployment, which you're not always going to be ready for, regardless of how much you prepare. But then literally 2 days prior to us leaving, the Israel-Hamas situation sparked off. And that was kind of like our big reason for being in the Mediterranean and in the Red Sea. So that was a big deal for us, is to kind of support Israel there. Whether the crew liked it or not, that's what we were there for, basically. And it came with its challenges, but we kind of, persevered and got through it. So,
let's talk for a moment. The concept of embedded mental health, it's still relatively new to many. In your experience, how does having mental health professionals on the front lines integrated into the daily lives of service members, how does it differ from traditional methods of providing mental health care?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's a great question because, the Navy has been, the Navy in particular, I imagine the other services as well, have been going away from this model of clinic or hospital kind of based mental health care, which could be daunting or, I guess a little bit intimidating to many people because they have to go through the entire system, the referral, the authorization, the appointment line and things like that. With embedded, you have your mental health doc, such as, someone like me who's right there with you every day, who you can talk to, you can get to know. You can see him in the passageways. You can see him in the, out and about, maybe even in the gym, stuff like that. So you kind of develop a bond slightly with that person, and then when the time comes, if you need it, hey, we're there. It's a lot easier to get a hold. Yeah, I think the embedded mental health position or situation is kind of like the next phase of how military mental health will go, and it's in the right direction in my opinion. So yeah, I'm very very happy for it, and it suits someone like me who's been an old enlisted guy that did some of those jobs before, where I was kind of out and about with the boys, so to speak. It flows naturally for me. So I'm very, very happy that that's where we're going. That's where we're headed, because it does take a little bit of the sting out of it when you're trying to find your mental health doc, and they're right there with you. So that's perfect.
Yeah, I imagine that degree of accessibility then is just like exponential all of a sudden. And then also, when we talk about the fact that physical health, I mean, with the armed services, like right there all the time and embraced, and it's part of every day, just as mental health should be as well. So the fact that there's this integration, this embedded option, seems like for sure the way to go.
Yeah, definitely a smart choice on the part of the deal there.
So let's talk about more words. Let's talk about some more phrases here. The phrase connect to protect is central to many military mental health initiatives. So what does this mean to you? And how did you implement this philosophy aboard the USS Eisenhower?
Connect to protect, right? Yeah, it's it's all about kind of getting out there. It's part of the embedded model, I think, in general, is the fact that you're able to get out and talk to people and walk the spaces, and be an integral part of the the fabric of the command there, so that the people kind of like know and see you, and they don't run and hide if you're kind of in their area. So and when you do that, thereby doing that, you're kind of you're offering or lending, I guess, a familiar face to some of these aspects that do kind of protect folks in a certain way, because it takes a lot to kind of step forward and not only for yourself but for other people to get a mental health, or to approach mental health. So if you can connect in that way on a very basic level first, then you're really offering kind of like that safety that other people are looking for. For me, it's just kind of like an everyday part of the job, I guess, but it's certainly a huge aspect of it, and it's something that should not be underlooked. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, and then like to your point, that to not feel so isolated, right? Like if they can go and they can see you in the gym, all of a sudden it becomes more normalized and not like this segregated subject, but rather something that's, to your point, right beside them. So
truly, yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you can get out and be like a regular Joe, in certain ways, people respect that, people understand that. So I think that's the foundation of it.
So I imagine that deployment in high tension regions can only increase those feelings, though, of isolation, of anxiety among service members. So how do you, as a mental health officer, help to foster resilience and the sense of community within such a challenging environment?
Yeah, that is the difficult part, because a lot of people, even though they're surrounded by other people every single day, quite literally on a aircraft carrier, there's 5,000 folks. But a lot of people do feel alone. They feel isolated. They feel misunderstood. They feel all these other things that, kind of sets them apart. So I think the big thing is to kind of, as cheesy as it might be, is to try to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are out there that sometimes a ship put on, which would be, for example, we had a karaoke night, on the mess decks, and it's just, the kind of, morale, welfare, and recreation department was trying to do their best to keep people engaged. But honestly, it just really comes down to learning the perspective of the people they work with, which, every department has their own culture, has their own issues. And I would hear different departments, different divisions come to me, and I could kind of get a sense of what each department was all about just based on the patients I had. So I could kind of formulate an idea of what that culture was in that department. For me, deployment is always a reminder of how simple life can be if you make it that way, because life is stripped down to its bare essentials at that point. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, hey, let's take a look around here. You're doing this, that, and the other. You're serving the United States Navy, the United States government. You're on a combat deployment. You're earning your stripes, so to speak, in many ways. Let's be appreciative of where we're at. Deployment's always it's always tough because it's not a good place for long-term therapy. So
yeah, you kind of imagine not.
yeah, you kind of have to just go to the root of the matter and like the day-to-day kind of thing. But I always told them, hey, be appreciative of what you have. Like, let's use some gratitude here. Mm-hmm. Take a look around and really try to count your blessings as much as you can, because that's the only thing that you can focus on at this point. Otherwise, you're gonna focus on the negatives that are many sometimes, but mm-hmm. The positives are there too. So let's shift our focus a little bit. So that was kind of my job, was to try to keep people I guess engaged in the moment, in the present, and focusing on the gratitude, I think, is the biggest part.
Yeah, no, that's a good word. And that's good advice for all of us. Gratitude is the attitude. So
there you go. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it rhymes, so it makes it easier to remember. But I want to go for a moment. You mentioned the karaoke. So what song did you sing?
Oh gosh, my go-to is always "Inside Out" by Eve 6. I don't know why. It's like from the late '90s. I'm a '90s guy. For some reason, I just choose that one every time. But
it's good to have your go-to.
Right, you got to have your go-to. You got to have a karaoke song just at the ready. So it's not too hard, but it's relatively catchy. So
indeed, it is.
Yeah.
One more question I have to ask today. As someone who has lived the dual roles of officer and mental health provider, what has been your biggest learning? Like, what lesson have you learned about the importance of mental health care in the military and how the armed forces continues to evolve to support the mental well-being of those who serve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one, because I think in the military, as mental health, providers, we're trying to do so much in such a short time that we kind of we get a little frustrated sometimes with the amount of time we have with patients or with fellow service members, because a lot of times people are moving on quickly, or they're seeing us, one, two, three times at maximum before they, deploy, or they transfer to another duty station. When you start out, I think as a young clinician, you really kind of get this like pie in the sky idea of like, I'm going to, cure everyone of everything. I think it's probably what every clinician of any stripe would probably imagine is their ultimate goal. But you realize in the military, it has to be much more pragmatic and solution focused and brief and short term. So I think I've learned over the years that you have to give as much as you can in every session, because you're not going to see these people very long, if ever again. So whereas in the civilian side, you have people in therapy for years, right? With the same therapist, which is great. Sure, go ahead, go for it. But in the military, we need to be impactful at every session, because we don't have as much time. I think the thing I've learned the most is how to deliver, I guess, impact in every session quickly and with little regard for timing, because that's kind of like what I have to do. And I think it is challenging, but it's made me a better clinician. It's made me a better provider, to be able to kind of get to the heart of things. I think that's the thing I've learned the most, is how to be concise and succinct in my delivery.
Well, for the work that you do to take care of all those who serve, thank you. Thank you so much for your service, for sharing this chapter, this part of your story, for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you.
Oh gosh, I am so appreciative of being here, and thank you for having me. And I feel honored to just be talking to you. So truly, it's been an honor, and I appreciate it. And thank you, and keep fighting the good fight. You guys are doing great things. So
Doing what we can. We got to do our part.